Alrighty. Welcome to the stream. Hey. So Joey Stiletto, where do you submit? So this is a live stream they do every single week inside of our private community for Producer Accelerator. So the people that have submitted are current students and members of that stream. We do this on YouTube once per month, just so you guys can get an idea of what it's like on the inside of our phenomenal program, Producer Accelerator. So for those of you guys who are not Producer Accelerator members, hopefully we can just bring you a ton of value. You're going to learn a lot here because it turns out that when you hear other people's music and you see feedback on their music, you can actually learn quite a bit. So for those of you Producer Accelerator members, drop a comment. Let me know that you're here. And if you're not in Producer Accelerator, also drop a comment. Let me know you're here. And I would love to see who is here. We got Peter, Felipe, Maxwell, Rich, George, Jammerman, my dude. What's up? Martin. We're going to get started on the stream in just a couple minutes. Steven, howdy. So again, to people just joining, we do this stream every single week inside of our private Facebook community for Producer Accelerator members. We do this once a month on YouTube just to give you guys a little bit of a sneak peek inside of it. It's pretty awesome. So yeah, we'll get started here in just a second, and it's going to be legit. Also, in other news, we just launched our new program, 14-Day Music Producer, today. We've already got like almost 100 people signed up, and the comments are in already. People love it. It's awesome. Alex Rome, my dude. Hey, look at who it is. Oh, there. Well, Lace, you're important too. I was trying to do that. Alex Rome, Mr. Alex Rome in the house, my bro. Yeah, Alex, let's talk next week about this producer battle because, yep, we got to make this happen. Dylan, I interrupted you watching the 14-Day Music Producer. That's awesome. How you liking it so far, Dylan? By the way, for those of you who have already started watching the 14-Day Music Producer, what do you guys think? Pretty legit, huh? Pretty awesome? Pretty incredible? I think so. We put a lot of work into it. So we are going to rock and roll here in just a second. Let's give like 30 more seconds. We're going to start with Felipe. No, we're going to start with Lace. Lace and Felipe, and then Felipe and Lace. Yeah. Nathan, do you cover arrangement for electronic music and stuff in Producer Accelerator? So as far as electronic music, it is not genre specific. However, we do cover arrangement. And the cool thing about arrangement is that the genre more or less doesn't matter. If you understand frequencies, if you understand pitch, if you understand how to actually layer pitch from bottom to top, that's what you need to know. We've got plenty of people that do electronic music inside of Producer Accelerator. We have people that do everything from like folk music to indie rock, pop, EDM, cinematic music, all sorts of stuff. Yeah. Alrighty, we're going to get started. We're going to start with Lace and Felipe. They did a collaboration on this project here, and then, yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be legit. So this first one's Lace and Felipe, and then the second one is Felipe and Lace. So Lace produced this, and Felipe is featured. Okay, I'm just gonna play it. Nice.
Every time I'm feeling blind, and every time I close my mind, I feel fine when you make me smile. Every time I forget who I am, you are there reminding me what I'm scared of, pointing me to something that I couldn't have planned. Our paths have crossed always get each other, writing songs and bursts in laughter, over crying tears of wonder.
When I told me to be patient, separated by the ocean, but connected to the same source. The time will come when we sing our song, and the crowd will cheer, and the dream goes on. Something in you woke something in me. I feel so alive, our spirits are free, creating real home. It's our energy, rising to the stars, changing reality. Open hearts, open ears, we don't mind shedding tears. We forget about our fears. You believe in me, I believe in you. Guess you see in me the same kind of truth. I see you. I see you are my best friend. I used to judge myself.
Oh, nice.
For every mistake, everything that I said. Thought I was bad, thought I was mad. But with you, I don't feel that. I forward in pride, have tears inside. When I'm with you, I have nothing to hide. It's like you're reading through my eyes. Thoughts I haven't shared come through your eyes, mine. Message you just heard, and I stand aside. I guess we're connected, our souls intertwined, pulling each other to the top towards the sky. Together we reach our mission in life.
Our paths have crossed forever. We always get each other, writing songs and bursts in laughter, over crying tears of wonder.
Over crying tears of wonder.
Piangere e ridere
Whoa.
attraverso uno schermo di vetro. La distanza non ha importanza, siamo insieme per l'eternità. Anime liberate e connessione ritrovata. Ma che bella è la vita quando tutto è possibile. Quando tutto è possibile.
How deep can we go? How high can
Oh,
we
yeah.
rise?
School processing.
How deep can we go? How high can we rise?
Wow. Lace and Felipe, you guys stop it. Please stop it. Just freaking stop it. You guys keep making awesome music and just keep doing it. Just keep making awesome music. There's so much in here that's really good. The arrangement on this is solid. The production on here is solid. Like the bass element is really good. Yeah, this is really, really cool. Very unique, like very different. Very different. Let's kind of just back up to the beginning. Like the whole start to this is really cool. Really enjoy it. Let's see. Yeah, the bass elements on here sound really great.
Every time I climb, every time I forget who I am.
Yeah, it is. The bass is sitting really good. The thing at the beginning here is those snare rolls. It kind of sounds like you're maybe using like the Butch Vig kit. Those snare rolls are tricky. Like Butch Vig is hard to get those snares sounding good on rolls.
Every time I feel,
It just sounds a little bit muddy.
every time I'm feeling.
If it were me, I would probably approach this a little bit differently. So rather than doing the snares, so that'll just be a little easier with the samples, because like I said, those Butch Vig samples are really, I've been unable to get them sounding good, and I'm guessing you're using Butch Vig because I know we've talked about this before, and obviously you and I both like using the Butch stuff. I think that would be a good idea to consider, or maybe using different samples if you really want that roll, maybe switch the samples up a little bit, use something different, because right now, especially with the distortion on them and stuff like that, it just sounds a little bit messy. Love the chorus, if you want to call it that, and I just saw the comment about the structure was unique on purpose, and so I kind of can sense that.
Our paths have crossed forever. We always.
Yeah, I agree with Dylan using a reverse snare sound. That could be really cool too. I love this, and you guys sing really well together. So pretty much everything through this was pretty much good. I thought most of this was solid. Here we go. Let's get into.
I used to judge myself for every mistake, everything that I said. Thought I was bad, thought I was mad.
I love this rhythm change up. That's really, really cool. Like, I love that. That's super cool. Really unexpected, but in a good way. The thing once we start getting into this is, Lace, your vocal starts to get buried by the instrumental, and so I think that's something you need to just kind of evaluate. It doesn't sound to me like the vocal's not loud enough. It kind of sounds to me like the instrumental is just too loud. So I would probably just take the whole instrumental and just kind of bring it down a little bit, maybe bump your vocal up a little bit. The vocal just gets buried for probably the next minute until I think Felipe starts jumping in with you again, and then the vocals kind of start hovering on top again. When you're kind of doing this like spoken rap, whatever you want to call it thing, your vocals just start to get lost a little bit. The other thing in here is, as you start getting some of these faster rhythms, there are just some rhythmic discrepancies, and this stuff is just really tough just in general for performances.
Burning bright, our tears inside. When I'm with you, I have nothing to hide. It's like you're reading through my eyes. Thoughts I haven't shared come to your eyes, mine. Message you just heard, and I send us.
Yes, like right there, the da 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 da.
Message you just heard, and I send.
Right there, that last phrase before I paused it.
You just heard, and I send.
Just a little bit of rushing happening, and so I would just go through and you might be able to fix that with something like flex pitch, which I honestly have been hating flex pitch lately. It's just it's gotten out of control. So I probably would try to stay away from flex pitch personally, but you could try using scissor tool and crossfades to fix that. I don't know I don't know what that would do overall, if you can do that. It just depends on how the audio is. Other than that, you might just want to punch in a couple of these parts just to get the rhythms a little bit more locked in. There's just a little bit of rushing, really easy to do on these faster rhythms. So yeah, 250. Let's see, where was it?
Tears of wonder.
Yeah, I think there's just so much in here that's really good. This moment here, like 315, I just wrote down heck yes.
Schermo di vetro.
Oh yeah, it was when you got the language change.
Piangere, ridere. Attraverso uno schermo di vetro. La distanza non ha importanza.
That's really cool. Really, really cool. So yeah, and that's pretty much it. I mean, honestly, this track is sounding great. The guitars sound awesome. The drums sound really good. The vocals are sounding really good. All that, yeah. Javier, about getting a great mix in your studio compared to the car. Yeah, I mean, a lot of that is, even if you're using monitors, if your room's not really well treated, it's not going to matter. You're not getting a very good reference of what it sounds like. I do use SonarWorks. Even though my room is a treated room, I still use SonarWorks. SonarWorks really doesn't do a ton. Like, it doesn't do that much, but it does enough that it will give me a better perspective of what I'm hearing. And yeah, all that here's the other thing you can do. If you roll off everything below like 200 on the master, like on the actual output, and if the mix sounds really good there, then that means that chances are you're overloading your low end. And that's pretty much what it comes down to. All right, we're going to move on to Felipe. Felipe, really well done. I just feel like every single time you guys submit, I have fewer and fewer things to say, which is exactly what we want. So well done. All right, Felipe, here we go.
And now it all makes sense. And now it all makes sense.
I've always dreamed of a better life, and I leave it all behind. And all the dreams I had found their way carved into my heart. You know that I've gone so far to reach you. You know that I've been so far to find you. Both sides of the world represented. 12,000 miles feels like nothing.
Heck yeah.
We're souls, we're mates, we're soulmates. Doesn't matter where we are. Guided through life on the fast lane. We reach our goals, can't deny it. Together we feel strong alignment. Indeed, stroke crossing oceans. Crossing oceans. Crossing oceans.
Love that guitar. Heck yeah.
My soul got wrong coordinates, reaching for friends and end up far away. Cities have similar names, maybe it was the right choice, 'cause you still recognize my voice. You still recognize my voice. You still recognize my voice.
Oh, snap.
You know that I've gone so far to find you. You know that I've been so far to reach you.
So many lessons lived, so many lives retrieved, illusions unveiled, one by one. The signs don't lie, we can't deny, we can't deny, we can't deny.
It took us years to rebound, break through the night of the dark collective mind. The one that dragged us down doesn't have no power anymore. And now it all makes sense, no need for reasons why. Better enjoy life and get the burdens out of sight. And now it all makes sense. And now it all makes sense.
And now it all makes sense.
Both sides of the world represented. 12,000 miles feels like nothing. We're souls, we're mates, we're soulmates. Doesn't matter where we are. Guided through life on the fast lane. We reach our goals, can't deny it. Together we feel strong alignment. Indeed, stroke crossing oceans. Crossing oceans. Crossing oceans.
So many lessons lived, so many lives retrieved, illusions unveiled, one by one. The signs don't lie, we can't deny the giggles inside. So many lessons lived, so many lives retrieved, illusions unveiled, one by one. The signs don't lie, we can't deny the giggles inside. And now it all makes sense.
No need for reasons why.
And now it all makes sense.
No need for reasons why.
And now it all makes sense.
No need for reasons why.
Wow. You guys kill me. I gotta say, y'all make me proud. I'm like a proud papa, proud daddy with his little kiddos. Like, the context here for everyone is that Lace and Felipe, I'm pretty sure, joined Producer Accelerator like as soon as it opened, like a year and a half ago. And my freaking gosh, you guys have improved so much. It's insane. And you guys are like improving at the same pace because they're doing music together, which is so cool. I think that really speaks. That really speaks. So that well done. Well done. Man. Most of the stuff that I wrote is positive, just great stuff. So, most of the stuff I have here is just love it. The vibe is awesome. Crazy. So those guitars sound great. The drums sound great. The bass sounds great. The vocals processing is fantastic. The use of space is fantastic. You guys are using everything, and I love that. That makes me real happy to see that you guys are just implementing all this stuff. Excuse me. So as far as some thoughts, there were just a couple things. Most of it's like really small stuff, so not really big. On your vocal, Felipe, it sounded like there might have been some things that need to be tuned a little bit more. And this isn't like a big deal. I know people get weird about vocal tuning. This doesn't need to be a big deal. It's just really small stuff. So like, for example, I think kind of near the beginning here, hold on.
A better life than I leave it all.
Leave it all. It seems like you didn't quite make it all the way up there. And I don't know if it was on the lead vocal or maybe one of the doubled vocals, but obviously if one of them is tuned right and then one of them is a little bit flat, they're going to grind against each other, and you definitely do not want that. So just some of those things that I would just go through and make sure you're getting really detailed on that. The other thing that I noticed on this is like 2 minutes something here.
Anymore. And now it all makes sense. No need for reasons why.
Reasons why. Just not quite getting all the way up there.
No need for reasons why.
And it sounds to me like maybe it's a double that's not tuned, because it sounds to me like the lead, it kind of sounds like there's two notes that are just a half step kind of grinding against each other. And so just make sure you're going through and getting detail with that stuff. That stuff is really hard, honestly. I mean, like, it's something that honestly, for me, I hear it and it's like, I immediately am like, oh yeah, that's what needs to happen, because it's just, obviously done. It's weird. I was just thinking about that. I'm pretty sure I've produced well over 1,000 songs, which when I think about that, I'm like, holy crap. Like, that's why a lot of the stuff is like second nature, because I've done it like literally over 1,000 times. So yeah, I think that's some of the small stuff. The other thing was you had this kind of pulsing bass. Yeah, it's on the doubles, I'm sure. If you look at the doubles, you'll notice that one of those doubles is probably tuned, but it's probably tuned just a half step low. Which it'll just sound like it's not tuned, unfortunately.
Recognize my voice. You still recognize my voice.
So this pulsing bass, the aggression on it feels a little out of character. The biting tone to it is what I'm referring to. I love the pulsing idea. I love the pulsing idea. I think it's just the tone of it itself is just a little bit. The vocal line is not what the issue is with the doubles. The vocal line is not the issue. It's the tuning is the issue. Vocal line will adjust the rhythm. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about tune. But yes, vocal line is awesome. I actually just got vocal line not too long ago, and I'm wondering why I've not been using this plugin. Like, what's wrong with me? Anyways, also in the market for a new tuning software since Flex Pitch. It's pissing me off. Anyways, that's a separate thing. So the pulsing part on here, I would roll off some of the highs just to kind of mellow out the aggression on it. It just sounds to me like the dun 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 dun. It's a little over the top. That was one of the only things that I thought was like, I don't know. The other thing is,
I'm so far to find you, you know all that I've been.
okay, so this part here, I think this is really cool. At first, I was a little bit like, I don't know how I feel about this whole string thing, but I thought about it, and I think the part of the problem is those strings need to kind of come up a bit. I think those strings need to come up a little bit. Like, you have some other stuff happening rhythmically. I think some of that stuff could kind of come down and let the strings speak out better. So yeah. Yeah, Dylan, I have Auto-Tune Pro, but honestly, I've not been a huge fan of the graph mode on it. I'm thinking about trying Revoice 4, which is by Synchro Arts. So anyway, yeah, Waves Tune. I had it years ago, back when Flex Pitch had their first round of issues. Flex Pitch has a very tainted history, unfortunately. But Waves Tune is okay. One of the reasons I kind of am feeling like Melodyne or Revoice is the ARA. The one thing about graph mode I don't like with Antares is it doesn't have Anyways, that's a whole conversation. But the only other thing I think just on this track just is those strings. Bring those strings up. And yes, you do have guitars there. I think it's just a lot of stuff is kind of busy and competing, and there's not a lot of definition of what's the most important thing. Like you got your vocals, what's next? It kind of gets cluttered with everything else. So either one, maybe take out the guitars to see how that works. I don't know. That might sound too empty. Or two, just make sure you're putting things in the right place in the sense of, we've talked about focus in like the mixing portion of the course. Have an idea of like what your focal point is, right? So the vocals are going to be the number one focal point, then maybe strings are second, and then maybe the guitars and then drums, or maybe strings and then drums and then guitars. So yeah, that's what I'd say. Master Song Studios, I already said what I thought about Waves Tune. Kind of meh. It's just I don't think it's the best. I don't like that you have to basically map. Yeah. Steve, ARA doesn't work in Melodyne. It should. I know people that use Melodyne and Logic that say it works. It works. So I don't know. That's a whole topic. I have Auto-Tune Pro, so part of me is like, oh, I should maybe just learn how to use that and get better at it, but it sucks. Freaking Logic. Probably gonna make a video complaining to Logic, see if they'll listen to me. I don't know. Maybe they'll just get mad at me, even though I'm like one of their biggest supporters. Whatever. All right, we're gonna move on. Honestly, Felipe, this is awesome. I don't feel like I have a whole lot to say other than just like make some of those changes and then release that. Release it, dude. Release it. All right, Steven. Here we go. Let's do it.
She will take you where you point her, take you where you want to go. Takes a gentle hand to lead her, take her kindly, take her slow. She cuts through the water quietly, by the skipper's graceful hand. She will always bear the legacy of that strong, beloved man. Marianne, you carry your children well. The skipper's bride in your log and fight. We cast off the second bell. Marianne, vessel of our dreams, dancing on the water with the one who leads Marianne. She will take you where you point her, take you where you want to go. It takes a gentle hand to lead her, take her kindly, take her slow. These are the words my grandpa told me as a tear swelled in his eye. And though I did not feel worthy, I took the wheel with pride. Marianne, you carry your children well. The skipper's bride in your log and fight. We cast off the second bell. Marianne, vessel of our dreams, dancing on the water with the one who leads Marianne. Eight bells toll over the water, ringing out a farewell song. Last request of my grandfather, and now it feels funny here without him standing on. Marianne. Cuts through the water quietly by the skipper's graceful hand. She will always bear the legacy of that strong, beloved man, Marianne.
Cool. I think the songwriting on this is pretty cool. Yeah, I like the songwriting. I think overall, like, I would shorten the song. It feels pretty long. I think that some areas you could shorten it would be this instrumental in here, kind of between the bridge and that last chorus. That's one thought, is shorten that, cut it in half. The other thought is, I don't know if you really need this little instrumental at the end here. We've already heard that multiple times. And so one of the things, I talk about this a lot, and that's having the intentional component, like, why am I doing this, and is this ultimately pushing the song forward? And so a lot of this comes down to expectation, right? Like, if we're gonna write something, then an audience is gonna have an expectation, right? The expectation is, I'm gonna be interested this whole song. And if we are hearing the same thing over and over again, like the idea of repetition is good to a point, but then there comes a point where it's kind of like, you've said it enough, right? And so a good idea overdone is no longer a good idea. And I think it's a really important concept, because this is a really good idea. Dun, 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 dun. That's a really good idea. But the problem is if you overdo that idea, then that is where you start running into issues. So I would try to find some ways to shorten specifically on the instrumentals. I think the instrumentals in general, instrumental sections in songs are usually overdone, and I get it too, because, like, as a musician, I think it's really easy to want to kind of like jam out or whatever, but at the same time, I tend to be of the philosophy that shorter is better, less is more. If I've already said something, I don't need to continue saying it, right? And that applies to music. So I would say, obviously, that's what we're talking about, is music, like the songwriting component. So that's the first thing. Let's talk a little bit about EQ, because I think EQ, and the reason I asked about how you're recording is because there are a few things I'm thinking about in terms of, one is, I don't know if there's some EQ on the channel strips. Maybe you could fill in on this, Steven. I don't know what the EQ processing is like on these. It sounds to me like the issue is more in how it was recorded and less of a processing issue. I think maybe the vocals were a little overdone on the processing. I don't know what the Logic preset you used was, but it kind of sounds like maybe the vocals a little over compressed, and that's kind of squeezing it. And then there's a lot of mid-range on it, so then it's squeezing the mid-range. It makes that mid-range even worse. And so there's some things there. So the first thing is that I don't know what kind of room you're recording in, but if you're recording in a room that is not ideal, has low buildup, low frequency buildup, so we're talking about just rooms that are not really treated, then when you record guitar, you're going to get this kind of weird kind of, honky kind of mid-range very often, or you're going to get these really weird nasally reflections. So that's the first thing. So when you're recording your guitar, couple things. One is, if you're in a less than ideal room, then you might want to try putting the mic a little bit closer to the guitar. Make sure it's at the 12th fret and then slightly angled towards the hole of the guitar. So 12th fret, very slightly angled. I talk about this in the course, right? And get closer. So the closer you are, it's going to capture more of just the, it's going to capture more of just the guitar tone and a little bit less of everything else, and then just take it down a little bit. So that's the first thing. The other thing is that if that's still causing problems, I've said this before, but if you're in a less than ideal room and you're using a condenser mic, I would sell the condenser mic and buy a dynamic mic, because condenser microphones are really sensitive, and most home studio producers are working in very much less than ideal rooms, right? Like my room here is an acoustic, it's a treated room. I have bass traps. All of my panels are bass trapping materials, but this is like a $2,000 acoustic treatment. Most people aren't going to do that. But, part of this is like I do this for a living. So, I'm going to invest in that. But if you can't, then I highly recommend using a dynamic mic, like either a Shure SM58. They're like $100. Shure SM7B is a little more expensive. This here is the Loudon LS208. I know I talk about this a lot. It's my all-time favorite microphone. It is a condenser mic, but it behaves more like a dynamic. And this microphone, like I'm pretty sure I could record in a completely untreated room. And I actually have done this, by the way. I actually literally recorded a song in a coffee shop with this. Basically what I'm trying to say is that you need to be just very cautious about making sure that you're trying to get the best sound coming into the DAW as possible. So when we listen to this guitar here, for example, yeah, it sounds really mid-rangey. I'm going to kind of show you what I'm talking about. So like in this 250 range, I'm going to kind of pull it up a little bit. So notice when I pull out that 250 right here. So this is with it off, on. The other thing is that you really should be rolling. It kind of sounds like there might be some other stuff. There we go. It kind of sounds like maybe there's something else nasally going on. Yeah, probably around like there. Yeah, I've heard good things about the 87A. Yeah. So you can see just by doing this, let's kind of go back to what it originally sounded like. Okay, and then let's throw that EQ on. So obviously you can do this with EQ. But listen to that. That now we're getting to a little bit more of a natural sound. So what I'm saying is that the most ideal situation is that you're getting that kind of a sound coming into your DAW before you ever throw anything on your effects, right? Like the best thing you can possibly do, and this is like why I preach so hard that focusing on being a better producer is more important than being a better mixing engineer. Because while I can do this, most people are not going to have the ear to know, oh, if I pull down 200 or 250, or if I go and kind of find around the 700 range, that's kind of where some of that is. Most people don't have their ears trained that way, and it takes a long time to train your ear that way. So rather than dealing with that and then saying, okay, I'm going to learn how to train my ear so I can EQ this, instead, try to make sure you're getting solid source from the start. So obviously, like we talk about in the course, I cover all this. Like -6 dB is the loudest that it should your audio should be when you're recording. And then the miking position, like I already kind of talked about. And if you're using a dynamic mic, your miking position would be virtually the same. The Shure SM57, yeah, and I agree. That's what I'm saying is like get a dynamic mic. That'll probably be the best thing you could do is getting a dynamic mic. So I know a lot of people are like, condenser mics are the gold standard, but like if you're in an untreated room, then actually it's not. Like, and the other thing is too is like I have a Lewitt 440 Pure, which is like I don't know, maybe like a $250 mic. Sounds really good on some female vocalists that I've worked on, but I recorded a song for our 14-day music producer course, and actually I was not a fan of how it sounded on my voice. And it's a large diaphragm condenser, and I'm like, ugh, like it would have sounded better if I used a Shure SM58 on this. So just don't be afraid to, kind of, I'm kind of getting on my on a rant here, but I'm just saying in general, like a lot of people get really concerned about you have to have a condenser, and you do not need to have a condenser. Like dynamic mics are just fine. So when we get the vocals in here,
He will take you where
here, take that EQ off.
He will take you where you point her.
Yeah, the SM57. Is that what you're using? Yeah. Okay. So I would say that. Are there going to be in-depth tutorials in EQ? So I have a video on EQ on the channel, but my channel, I really don't talk too much about mixing because I want to stay focused on producing on my channel. But that's not to say that I won't ever do more. I'm just saying like right now the focus is just making more producing videos because again, like I just said, Your focus should not be learning how to use EQ. Your focus should be get better at producing. So your vocals here, let's just listen to this a little bit here. And I do want to kind of show you a little bit of what I'm talking about on the vocal.
He will take you where you point her.
Right there, that 200 range, it's the same thing. It's the same. The reason this is causing so much problems is because the guitar has a lot of it, and then your vocal has a lot of it, and then it's compounding and building up and then causing a lot of problems. You can even see in the graph here, the analyzer, it's really cranking. So we're going to need to bring that down.
He will take you where you point her.
Now that alone made a pretty big difference. Let's see if we can't get rid of some of the nasally stuff here.
He will take you where you point her. Take you where you want to go. He will take you where you point her. Take you where you want to go. He will take you where you point her.
I mean, just like that alone, that helps. So you could EQ this. I'm just suggesting rather than getting crazy on EQ, if it were me, again, I'm just giving you what I would do. I would re-record this, and I would just try to get really, really awesome. Hold on. Depending on the guitar, it may be mid-range heavy, so you may have to tune the EQ. Yeah, for sure. Like obviously, I'm not saying you're not going to have to use any EQ. I just want to make sure I'm really clear on that. I'm not saying don't use any EQ, don't use any processing. Of course, you need to do all those things. I'm just saying get it as close to what you want it to be before you get there. So yeah, like a Martin is going to sound different than a Taylor. Like my Taylor's really bright. Like I'm not going to have any of the mid-range issues. It's a very bright guitar. A Martin though, it depends on how you mic it. I mean, if you're doing, like say like an XY miking situation, yeah, you're going to have a lot of mid-range. Also, yeah, depends on a lot of factors. Most of the stuff that I have on this is related to just the source, just making sure that you're really dialing in the source on this. And then like really listening, hopefully just me playing that and you kind of hearing like how the EQ affects this. You can definitely get the audio coming in to not have these problems. And obviously if you have presets on your vocals, those presets, like I'll be honest, some of the Logic presets are just absolutely atrocious. Like I would never use them. And so just because there are presets built into Logic, some of them are just terrible. And it's not me talking negatively about you using them. Like plenty of people use them. I'm just saying, just be careful. The other aspect of this, I would say, is just some like the vocal tuning. I'm pretty sure you're using Logic, Steven. I think you said that. Even though I'm complaining about flex pitch is better than no pitch correction. So I would go through and make sure you're doing the pitch correction. I have a whole lesson on that in the course, obviously. But like especially at the ending here, there was the backup vocals in particular. You can hear the pitch kind of dip in there. So those are things that you'll want to go through and tune. It's gonna make a really big difference. I think that if you go through and tune, and then really focus on making sure that your source is not too mid-range heavy and mid-heavy, I think that you're gonna like that alone is going to make a night and day difference on how this track sounds. For sure makes a big difference. And then my encouragement would be if you go and watch in the mixing fundamentals portion of the course, if you go into there and if you check out the my go-to vocal chain, I literally use this vocal chain on like 95% of all of my music, and it works every single time like magic. The reverbs are where you things get different on the reverb and delay. This is like a compression specifically. If you use that, I think that'll really, really help. And then, I don't know how far you've gotten in the course either. So I don't want to like push you into a section of the course that you're not ready for. But just based on this, I think so I've kind of mentioned so far what you should be focusing on. Okay. If you have any questions about that, Steven, let me know. I'd be happy to clarify. Peter, when did flex pitch start having issues? It's been a few months. I started noticing it. I actually been doing a lot of instrumental music, so I did not. I did not really notice it until a little more recently, but it's been a few months, and it seems to have gotten worse. Really what the issue is flex pitch is causing these very strange artifacts on the sibilant consonants. So like S's and T's and things like that. It sounds terrible. Just absolutely terrible. It's unusable. Completely unusable. So really sucks because flex pitch had a pretty good run there. There was about a 2-year period where flex pitch was actually really good. Yeah. Alrighty, we're gonna move on to Max Ferguson. Here we go. Maybe.
I don't know if I can find my way back from where I began. Don't know if that kid's still there. Broken, yeah, still broken. Thought I could be on my own, still broken alone. 'Cause I don't know how to keep myself from falling in myself. Yeah, myself. Just wanted to be a good kid, but now I'm honest. Now I feel hopeless. Maybe there's a way where I can be honest, but that seems so distant. Like my friends and family, pressure keeps turning, and I keep hurting. The pressure is tearing me apart. The pressure, yeah, the pressure. I don't know who I am anymore, and I can't feel a thing. No tears, just painful regret that plays in my head, and I can't hide this shame. It cuts deep, too deep in me. I don't know what to do now, but to try to heal the wound, and maybe I'll be alright. Yeah, I'll be alright. Yeah, I'll be
Nice. There's a lot of potential in this song, I think. The songwriting on this is actually really good. So, I mean, it's long. I would say, if it were, again, take this with a grain of salt. I know that stylistically, maybe, you could get away with this. Longer song, but 4:45 is really long. This is my 2 cents. I think the section in here could really be trimmed down, and I understand that lyrically there's a lot of important stuff, so I understand there's this balance between there's that balance between like keeping things brief, but then also like you have a lot to say, right? So this is why I'm saying, like, take it with a grain of salt. I'm just saying this is a long song. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's something to be aware of. Like, yes, this is a long song. So if it were me, I would personally be saying, how can we trim this down a little bit to make it a little bit more digestible? That's also coming from the perspective of, being a little bit more of a commercial producer. And that's kind of my job, right? Is to help artists have the most commercially viable product, right? So with that said, the songwriting on this is really cool. The vibe on here is really cool. There's a lot of really cool stuff. There's also a few things that if you fix them will make the world of a difference. The very first one is pitch correction on your vocals. Part of this is I just think that you need to work on the performances of the vocals. You've got a really unique voice. And so this is not me saying you have a bad voice. That's not what I'm saying at all. Like I have... there are some songs for me that are much easier to vocally perform than others. Like I actually just got done doing a track. It's actually for the 14-day music producer course. The vocals were really difficult for me. Like I had to do like 15 to 20 takes, which I rarely have to do. But I was doing like 15, 20 takes because it was like I just could not nail the performances. And I want to get the performances as good as possible so that I don't have to rely as heavily on editing, and I don't want to be relying on like fixing tons of stuff with pitch correction. Pitch correction is a necessary part of the process. So with that, when you have these vocal doubles and things at the beginning, it becomes more apparent. And this is where it's like, if you have just a single lead vocal, you can get away with a little bit more. But the moment you start doing vocal layers and stacking things, they compound, which means if you have one out of tune, the other one's out of tune, the other one's out of tune, it becomes difficult to listen to, even if you have a good voice. So I don't want this to at all be like you don't have a good voice, because pitch and good voice are not the same, right? Like pitch is just a part of a voice, right? A part of the kind of circle or sphere of notes, like being on pitch. You can be a great singer and still have a pitchy performance. Like I've had plenty of artists that I've worked with who are phenomenal singers, and then we get in the studio and all of a sudden they're singing really out of tune, like having a really hard time. This is just a part of the process, right? And so then like I'm trying to coach them to help them, and ultimately, even if we end up with a pitchy performance, as long as the articulation and the rhythm and the expression of that performance is really good, we can absolutely correct things with pitch correction. So that's kind of my philosophy on pitch correction. I would definitely recommend you go on and really work on polishing these vocals, because it will make the world of a difference. I promise you.
Way back from where we began.
Yeah, so there's just a lot of clashing happening in here between the different vocals. And then the other thing is rhythm. I talk a lot about rhythmic editing in the course, so I'd really recommend that you go and watch how we do the vocal editing in the course, because that's pretty huge. So that's the first thing. The other thing is that the strings could really be elevated by adding some dynamics to these strings. So right now the strings are just kind of playing these chords, right? And they're just kind of there. And the reason they kind of sound artificial is because there's not this swelling or there's not this dynamic happening. So you're going to need to go in and automate that. It depends on the library you're using. You can oftentimes use modulation to automate that. The other is if your library that you're using doesn't have that as a function, then use volume automation. Back in the day, like 13 to 15 years ago, before I had any sample libraries and was doing strings, I just did it with volume. And so literally just automate the volume so it's kind of swelling, going up and down, right? And so you want to really work on that, because that's going to help a tremendous amount in one, making these strings sound authentic and sound a little bit more realistic. If you're using Contact, then use the modulation. So on the MIDI track, if you open up your editor on the MIDI track, you'll be able to actually open up automation on it and then use modulation. That's the control you want to be using. It's going to, trust me, it'll make a really big difference. And then sweet, yeah, no, that sounds good. And there those stuff that sounds good. Billy, about the vocals not doubled, I might like us. I agree. Like actually later on in this section here,
And I can't.
there's a little bit of pitchy stuff happening, but it doesn't bother me as much because there isn't a doubled vocal. So again, this is not me saying you have to go in and pitch correct everything 100% perfect. That's not what I'm saying. That's not my belief system. That's not how I operate. But I am saying that when you double vocals, it becomes a lot more dicey. Then once you get into these sections, this big sections in here, the strings here are just really overpowering, and then you have a lot of low mid stuff that's just really building up here. Just need to really, really tame that down. You have to balance that. Like you want it to be big, but you don't want it to be like woofy and causing an overload on those low mids. So all of these sections where it got really big, I love what's happening. I love the musical components of it, but the balance component, which is like making sure everything is in the right spot, volume wise, frequency wise, I would be taking those strings and probably bumping them up an octave and then making sure you just have a nice bass element to kind of hold the fourth down. So it's really, this is an arrangement thing where, and I've made some YouTube videos talking about this, by the way, recently. You want to be making it so that you've got your low end supported by bass and kick, for example. And you need to have everything kind of written and composed and arranged with the frequency spectrum in mind, right? So you're not overloading any one thing by having your strings and bass and keyboards and all the stuff in the lows and the mids. Instead, you want to spread that out so that way you're giving yourself more room for breath and more room for breathing. So a lot of people just end up overloading the low mids, and that's what ends up causing a lot of issues. Yeah, I would just look at these bigger sections and try to get some of that stuff under control, whether that's changing the arrangement a little bit and spreading out those notes to just extend the range higher, or just working on some of the volume. The other thing is at the end here, the timing. I mentioned timing, like rhythmic editing on the vocals. I think that part of this is just like, here's what I would just say. I would just say that if I was your producer, and again, none of this is like, I understand that like when we're talking about performances and music, everything can become very deeply personal. I don't mean this at all in like a personal thing, in a personal way. I'm just saying, if I was your producer, you're in my studio and this is what we had, I would be saying, hey, let's work on these vocals a little bit more. Let's see if we can't re-record a bunch of this and just get it sounding better. More in the pocket, which is just rhythm, making sure everything is really in the pocket rhythmically, because rhythm is the one thing that with vocals is a massive pain in the butt to edit. Like editing rhythm is not fun. And if your lead vocal is already kind of off rhythm, like rushing or a little bit too far behind the beat, it's really difficult to fix that stuff. So that's the stuff that when I'm working with musicians in the studio, I'm actually usually coaching them on rhythm more than I'm coaching them on anything else. So I'm going to just play this last part here. And let's just kind of pay attention just to the vocals specifically in rhythm and timing.
Pressure keeps turning, and I keep hurting.
So you kind of hear like they're kind of coming in at different places and they're not all completely locked in. They don't have to be like completely perfect, but you want to get them tighter. Otherwise it just sounds a little too messy and it actually begins to sound like there were mistakes made. So just, yeah, and the more layers you add, the more important it is that you're really in the groove. Master Song Studios, Nathan, when are you going to release more music on Spotify? Hey, fun fact, we're actually getting ready to do a bunch of new stuff on my artist channel, Nathan James. So it won't be on this channel. It'll be on another channel, but we have a crap load of music we're going to be putting out, and we're going to be going all in on that channel. That's a secret, though. Don't tell anyone I said that. Totally secret. Yeah. We're going to be making some stupid viral content, and I'm not joking. Like, I think some of the video ideas that we have will legitimately could do like millions of views. It's going to be awesome. Which, by the way, we had our first video on this channel break 1 million views like 2 weeks ago. That's pretty legit. So, all right. Max, if you have any questions on that, let me know. I'll be happy to fill in any of the gaps. We're going to move on to David because we got 2 more submissions here. Here we go. David Mudge.
One of the great things about women is they make you write good songs. What would you write about? I mean, owls in the trousers. That's been going on for longer than you and I have been alive, you know. I mean, just chicks that hang around with bands because they like it, you know. So they just hang around. And, you know, it makes good for good songs, you know, all that trouble. All that trouble.
Whoa.
Driving fast, I'm on the road. Move like Jagger, rock and roll. Take the girl to Mexico. Knowing me, I'd steal her soul. Had me losing all control. Speaking Spanish,
Heck
mind
yeah.
is blown. You got me spinning, girl, no why I blow. Espanol, stole my heart so fucking cold. Does she love me? I don't know. Guess we'll really never know.
Damn. Yeah.
We'll be alright though. It's a wild road. Just go with the flow. No matter if they go, never be alone. The lights will guide you home. We'll be alright though. It's a wild road. Just go with the flow. No matter if they go, never be alone. The lights will guide you home.
Dang. Holy crap, this is great. Totally unexpected.
Monday night, and I'm thinking
Yes.
about the weekend. Get all the friends
Triple,
together,
triple.
hit West End and over space. Sunrise, what a beautiful surprise. Rode the trade winds and got a little lady friend. We took a ride, and I asked the Lord's forgiveness. 'Cause I got too late and drunk down by my ex-girlfriends. Look me in my eyes, tell me it's alright. Make it go away, if only for one night. She had me singing, and I was thinking she wouldn't believe this shit I've been dreaming. We'll be alright though. It's a wild road. Just go with the flow. No matter if they go, never be alone. The lights will guide you home. We'll be alright though. It's a wild road. Just go with the flow. No matter if they go, never be alone. The lights will guide you home.
Wow, that was so unexpected. That the intro of the song, I was like, oh, cool, like a cinematic piece of music. Nope. That was really, really cool. Oh man, that was a journey. That was a journey. That's the thing is, if you guys know anything about me and my interests, I love a journey. I want to be taken on a musical journey. I think most listeners want to be taken on a musical journey. Man, that was legit. There's so much stuff in here that I loved. I love it. Yeah, so let's kind of talk about this. First of all, the groove is fantastic once you get into this here. Couple things you might want to try is taking that synth, exporting it as audio, and then doing some slowdowns and reverses. Like doing some things like that where you're actually literally taking the audio. Let me just show you. I'm just going to show you. Why talk about it when I could show you? Right there. Grab that guy. Watch this. Watch this. Are you ready for this? Are you even ready for this? Watch. Slow down. Watch this. Heck freaking yeah. Maybe a little bit more. Watch this in context here. Bro, do some of that junk in there. And then maybe even, I don't know why I said junk, but you know, whatever. And then you could do another one in here, speed up. Here, change that shape a little bit more. Just going to take this and just elevate the whole thing. Just make it a little more interesting. You're already doing some cool things. But by doing this, it's just going to kind of give it a little extra, you know, you're already doing these kind of rhythmic things that to me is like signaling you should have some fun with this. Have some fun with it. Awesome. I will say this intro, while it was super cool and throws you off, I feel like it could be shorter. That's my only thought. I don't know. I'm like the guy who just is like, cut it, right? Cut it. And that's my, yeah, it takes like 30 seconds to get into it. And what I'm thinking about is like the average listener is going to start listening to this and be like, yeah, okay, cool, next, right? And that's obviously not what you would want, right? Like you'd want maybe start it off with that kind of cinematic thing and then make sure people know, hey, this is not actually how this is going to go. I don't know. That's a tricky thing to think through. I'm not going to say cut it or shorten it or whatever. I'm just saying think about that. Think about that dilemma for a second, because that is kind of a dilemma. Now, once these vocals come in, I'm going to show you an idea that I think will blow your mind. Yeah, you're asking what the tool is. It's just the fade tool. So when you add a fade, see, watch, I just added a fade. Oops, that's a crossfade. That's not what I want. So when you add a fade, okay, you could use the fade tool. I have Logic set up so that when I go like this, it automatically turns into the fade tool. You can just use the regular fade tool though. And then you right click on it and then just go to slow down. Heyo. There you go. As far as when the vocals come in, here's what you should do. On the road, move like Jagger, rock and roll. Okay, so a couple things. One, the vocals really need to come up. Like overall, throughout this entire track, the vocals just felt a little bit buried. Get those vocals on top. Just get those vocals on top. The second thing is when this intro, or not the intro, this verse happens, I'm going to show you what you should do, bro. I'm telling you, this will do magic. Go like this, throw some EQ on that main synth. Like Jagger, rock and roll, take the girl to Mexico, knowing me, I steal a soul. Okay, and roll off all those highs once the vocal comes in and automate it. Okay, don't just like turn off the EQ and then turn it on, because that might kind of sound a little funky. But just, can you do this in GarageBand? No. There's a lot of stuff that you can't do in GarageBand. Get Logic. Seriously, if you're using GarageBand and you want to take your music to the next level, get Logic. I'll leave it at that. Just get Logic. You can do 100 things in Logic. You can do a million things in Logic you can't do in GarageBand. GarageBand is like, I don't want to be mean. Never mind. I won't say it. It's the toy version. GarageBand is like the toy version of Logic. Yes, you can. Well, at least in the iOS system, like iPhone. Okay, maybe you can. But there's tons of other things you can't do in GarageBand. Just get Logic. Trust me. Anyway, I'll leave that alone. The reason that you might want to do this is because it's going to help add this layer of separation between the synth and your vocal, right? Because that synth is really bright, and you want that vocal to kind of really sit on top. So an easy way of doing this that's not volume related, FL Studios is fine. I mean, just any pro DAW. Just get a professional DAW. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what DAW you get. Like Ableton, Pro Tools. Actually, don't get Pro Tools. Pro Tools sucks. Anyways, I'm going to make a lot of people mad. Probably not you guys. I think most of you guys aren't Pro Tools users, but if I say that around Pro Tools people, they get all pissed about it. So anyway, whatever. It's a great way of making friends. Anyways, this synth, I would roll off those highs on just on the verse and then bring them back in the chorus. So you don't want to just like get rid of them entirely. It's an effect that you can use to essentially allow those vocals to poke out more. I do this with electric guitars actually quite a bit. If I have a brighter electric guitar intro, I'll like automate the EQ to roll off the highs so that way that vocal can stand out a lot more. Pro trick right there for you. Yeah, overall vocals just need to come up. Yeah, just vocals need to come up. There's so much in here I love though. Like, other than that, I think that's great. The song is oh wait, no, this is verse. Yeah, let's talk about this.
Tell me it's alright, make it go away.
This verse was a little long, so if it was me, I would trim this verse and try to shave off some of the time. I would maybe like make it like a quarter, like shave off like 25% of it or something like that. I don't know. I would just shorten this verse. Obviously, I know that means you have to modify lyrics and stuff, but the verse, it just feels a little bit long. By the time we're kind of getting into that like pre-chorus, it's a little bit like, okay, I get it. Let's move on, right? So there's this rule of threes. I've talked about this before. Rule of threes is you do an idea one time, you repeat it one time, that third time you need to go somewhere different. So that's a rule that I follow all the time. And I think it's a very good rule to follow. This last chorus, what can you do to elevate this? That's the main question that I have is, when you get into this last chorus, you have a lot of sustained stuff happening, right? And this was standard in all the other courses. I was thinking that maybe the second time you do this chorus, go back into like that bump, 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 whamp, bump, whamp, bump, whamp, bump, whamp, like just to add something different, to give people a reason. Like whenever I talk about repeating an idea, like you're going to repeat the chorus a second time at the end like that, I always like to think about repeating. I always like to think about repeating through the lens of, if I'm going to repeat something, there has to be a reason why I'm doing it. And the reason why could be, I'm going to introduce a new rhythm, a new pattern, something they haven't heard before. So if you're going to do it again, like the second half of this, I would try to take some of the stuff that you've already used and then bring it into that chorus, like that rhythmic bump, bow, ramp, like do something like that to just, that way when people hear it that second, I'm like, oh, that's cool. I wasn't expecting that, right? Like that's kind of what you want. So kind of like dynamic side ducking in the synths when the vocals are active. Yeah, sort of. If you're talking about the EQ filtering I was talking about, it's sort of like that, but it's just obviously it's instead of ducking the volume, you're actually removing that frequency. So yeah, but I wouldn't be using like sidechain compression or anything to do that. I would actually be using an actual EQ and an actual filter to do that instead. So yeah. But yeah, other than that, I think this is sounding sick. Like the drums are awesome. The vocals are pretty cool. There were some tuning things, but I can get, yeah, I think this style kind of calls for some of the auto-tuning kind of stuff, but there were just some notes that were maybe just the auto-tune was not catching properly. But yeah, I'm glad that my mouth helps you understand LTP projects, the drums and yeah. Would you ever pan the synths to make the vocals come through better? You could. I mean, like what you could do is have like 2 different tracks. Amen. So this comment about Guy Michaelmore. First of all, Guy Michaelmore is a good teacher. He's one of the very few people I actually think is actually a really good communicator, like teacher. And this is exactly what I'm preaching. Like he and I are very much on the same page. And it's funny because I actually have a film scoring background. So I resonate with Guy a lot because, and this is partly why I probably think this way, is because yeah, like music is a story, and like a good story, you're not going to give away the whole story right away at the beginning. You have to leave something at the end that gives you, you're leaving breadcrumbs. You're leaving a trail for people to follow. Okay. And you want to make sure that you're leaving a trail of ideas for people to follow that keeps them vested, keeps them interested in your music. If you're just continuing to repeat ideas, repetition, I've said this already during this stream, and I say this, I probably have said this a million times. Okay, maybe that's a little exaggerative, but you get what I mean. I've said it a lot. And that is, a good idea repeated too many times is no longer a good idea. And I think that if you really stop and think about that, that's actually a very profound thing to say. I think that's profound. A good idea done too many times is no longer a good idea. Like, let that sink in for a second, right? We all have ideas that are probably really good. And in many cases as musicians, it's our temptation to say, this is such a good idea. I just want to hear it over and over and over and over and over again. That's not what an audience thinks. When an audience hears something the first time, they're like, wow, that's a really cool idea. Did they hear it the second time? They're like, that was a really cool idea. And then they heard it a third time and they're like, oh, okay. And then they hear it a fourth time and they're like, I get it. And they hear it a fifth time and they're like, please, for the love of God, do something different, right? Then you're just frustrated. And then that's when people bounce and people leave. So again, leave a bread trail, leave crumbs for people to follow, right? When you put out those crumbs, you're like dangling out the crumbs in front of them saying, hey, I'm not finished yet. I got more juice. I got something else for you that you're going to want to hear. And when you go about your arrangements and your productions, and this is why, by the way, this is why I am so bullish about arranging. Mixing does not accomplish that, right? You can mix creatively. You can add contrast by mixing. But when you are actually producing music, right, as a producer, it is our job to make the music interesting by actually making the music interesting. And that is composition and that is arrangement. It is not mixing. Make your compositions better. Make your arrangements better. Leave a trail of breadcrumbs by making better music. Okay? Mixing is about essentially gluing it all together, right? Mixing is really all about essentially executing the vision of the arrangement and the composition. Like, that's really what mixing is. So have I ever scored any Hollywood films? No. I was just like, everything I did is independent, like short film, animated stuff, and then like commercial stuff. So, and I haven't done film scoring in a long time. That's a part of my past that probably won't be doing a whole lot. However, I really am looking at getting into some other stuff like sync licensing. Anyway, that's cool. Alrighty, Martin Schmidt. Here we go.
Someone's calling out my name again. Go on, leave me to myself. I cannot tell a stranger from a friend. Days will come when you are near again. I don't know when, but fire starts a burning heart. Bring me down to the old lot where I belong. City streets, they seem too much for you. Dirt and dust are in our hair. Dents and mold shots turns to obstacles, as we'd be dancing in a veil of mist into nowhere. But fire starts a burning heart. Bring me down to the old lot where I belong.
Nice. This is really good. Yeah, I like this a lot. There's a lot of good stuff in here. I think your vocals need to come up quite a bit. I think I just noticed some of the comments here as well. Your vocals definitely, the vocals definitely need to come up. This is really good though. The vocals are actually pretty bright as well, like in relationship to the rest of the track. I think it probably it's not so much about taking out any of the highs. I think actually it's that it kind of sounds like some of the mids got removed in either that or they're just not as much mid-range in your vocal. I would probably add a little bit of that in. Like, to be honest with you, I'd probably add a little bit of that 250 to 350 range. I mean, you're gonna have to kind of see, like, obviously that's kind of a danger range. So yeah, I think that would definitely be something you want to look into, is adding a little bit of the mids back into that vocal if you remove them. The guitar also felt really mellow. And I think once we got into the mix, I felt like it was fine. Initially, I was kind of thinking it might be nice to have a little bit of shimmer. I don't know. If it were me, I would probably, this is probably what I would do. I personally love the Pultec EQ in Logic. I might even actually, now that I'm looking at this and hearing it, I might actually also kind of scoop a little bit out. There we go. Listen to this now. Yeah, so listen to kind of a before and after. So this is like before EQ. After EQ. Yeah. Do you hear that? Almost like, I don't know, it almost took like a blanket off of it. Just adds this clarity. You know, it just takes a blanket off. EQ can be magical. I love EQ. If you understand EQ, and it's like if you know how to make the small moves, it makes a big difference. Anyway, and then your vocal on here.
Go on and leave me to myself. I cannot tell a stranger from a friend.
Yep, I was thinking it might be around 300. So listen to this. Listen to your vocal without EQ.
I cannot.
Here we go.
I cannot tell a stranger from a friend.
It's a cool line too. Here's a little bit at 300.
I cannot tell a stranger from a friend.
Obviously, that's affecting the guitar as well, which isn't good. But if you put that in your vocal, I think if you were to introduce some 300, boom, it's gonna just add a little bit more roundedness to the vocal in general. And then again, volume. I felt like the reverb was a little bit much on the verses. Add the reverb a little bit more on the choruses, but the verses, I felt like you could probably bring the reverb down. Excuse me, on the vocal a little bit. Yeah, for sure. No, that's fine. And the thing is too, is like what's interesting is by adding 300, it actually, it really kind of balances things. Do you like the space the vocal is in compared to the rest of the music? When you say the space, like you're referring to reverb, you're referring to volume. Space is one of those weird words. It can mean a couple different things. I mean, I feel like the vocal, if you're referring to volume, like I said, the vocal needs to come up. The vocals, I feel like the problem is that the guitar and the vocal kind of feel like this. The vocal needs to be on top. Yeah, so I talk a lot about this in the course. So again, just saying, if you're not in Producer Accelerator, you should join. I have a link below this video. Anyways, that's besides the point. I talk about this a lot, and that's doing like multi-dimensional mixing. When you think about how music sounds, good music is not going to have everything the same volume. Good music is going to have dimension, right? Like there's going to be a focal point and then the things that are not in focus. And if you have vocal music, the vocal needs to be the focal point. Reverb. Yeah. I think that the reverb itself is just too loud. I think the actual reverb itself is fine. I think it's just the reverb is too loud in the vocal. Now, once you get in the chorus, you could bring that up for sure, because then things kind of build up and build in. Yeah. I really like when the drums come in too. Like that was something I wrote down. I think the drums sound awesome once you throw that in. The sounds are good. I like the drums. Really, really cool. the one thing, Nathan, is it true that 360 hertz is a magic frequency for electric guitars? No, it's not true, because it's going to completely depend on the guitar. It's going to completely depend on the source that you're recording. Are you miking the guitar? Are you miking the cabinet? If so, what kind of microphone are you using? Are you going direct line in? If so, what kind of amp simulations are you using? There's a lot. Now, that 300 to 500 range, and also it depends on where the guitar is playing. If you're playing a little bit lower, or you're playing higher on the guitar, those are all going to make a big difference. But as far as like, if you want something to be a little warmer and not boomy, then like 400 to 600 is going to be where that is. Like 400 basically is where that is. Like, that's what I did on his vocal, like 300, it was like 350 on his vocal to get it warmer. You just need to be really careful, because those are the frequencies where if you overdo it, it starts to sound messy. And so it's one of those things where you just have to be very selective about what you want to actually exist there, because you start getting a little bit below that into the 250 range, sub 300 range, that's like danger zone. It's like the danger zone. So you need to be really cautious and be very, very careful about that. As far as the songwriting goes, the one thing that I felt was, it felt like the chorus needed more lyrics. So here's kind of what I'm talking about.
Bring the fireworks to light the night again.
So this vocal stops here.
Bring me pride.
And the vocals come in again. So there's a lot of space where there's just not vocals happening. And to me, it came across to me as like, oh, there should be lyrics here. Like, there should be more vocals here, because it's like you da 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 da, and then it's like 4 bars of no vocals. That was the one thing from a songwriting standpoint that I think you could really, really take this up a notch by actually kind of filling this in melodically with lyrics. That was kind of the one thing. And I'm not telling you like what you should do with that. I'm just saying in general, there's just a lot of wide open space in these choruses that kind of seems to me like it would be best served by adding some more lyrics and a melody with the vocals. And then with that, I think that would change the outro too. Obviously if you have more vocals, that outro would not be quite as long of just an instrumental outro. Other than that, this is sounding really, really good. I think there's a lot of good stuff in here. Are there any good free reverb plugins? Sure. I think Valhalla has their Supermassive something. I don't know. I forget what it's called. It's been a long time since I've looked at free plugins. I'll be honest with you, there are very few free plugins that are actually good. I'm just saying. I know that's not what people want to hear, but I've been doing this long enough, and I have had my years of looking for free stuff. And to be completely honest with you, I'm just kind of at a place where, for me, after using a bunch of free stuff, most free stuff is just, it's not good. I'm not saying all paid stuff is good either, by the way. I'm just saying you should just be selective and find good stuff that you actually want to invest in. So, yeah. Hold on. Oops. Just wanted to go in here. Okay, so you tried many cool reverbs. Even stock Logic reverb does the job pretty well. I don't disagree. I agree with that. The stock Logic reverb is pretty good. I would love to what was I just gonna say? I just like completely lost my train of thought. Sorry, it's been a really long couple weeks. I'll say my all-time favorite reverbs are Realm, which is Native Instruments. Realm by Native Instruments, and Baby Audio just came out with a new one called Crystalline, and it sounds fan-freaking-tastic. Sounds really, really good. And by the way, Producer Accelerator members get a discount on Baby Audio stuff. Just saying as well. Hey Nathan, what real drum plugins do you recommend other than Logic Pro stock? I hate the Logic Pro drums. The SoCal drum kit, everyone freaking uses that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say it like that. Like, that's not me trying to be mean. Everyone uses the SoCal drum kit in Logic, and it is such an obvious sound. I cannot even tell you how many times we've done these Feedback Friday live sessions, and I've been like, yeah, that's a SoCal kit. Use something different. Just use something different. As far as live drum kits, Native Instruments has some really good stuff. Their studio drummer's really good. Butch Vig, if you want some aggression on your drums, Butch Vig is good. What others are there? I've heard a lot of good things about Easy Drummer. I don't use Easy Drummer personally. Drum Lab is good. That's a Native Instruments one. Battery 4 just has a ton of great stuff, especially if you get some of the expansion packs. But yeah, honestly though, lately I've been digging live drums more and more and more. It's just, I don't know. I've been enjoying working with live drums more often. I'm actually getting ready to take another room. It is because the SoCal is the only good one out of them. That is absolutely true. And it's the only good one, and then everyone uses it, and then it's no longer a good one because everyone uses it. Yeah. So yeah. I'm actually getting ready to build out a drum studio in my studio. So I have another room that's currently my gear room, and I'm going to be converting that into a drum studio, which can be pretty freaking legit. I don't have Superior Drummer, but I've heard a lot of good things about Superior Drummer. Slate Trigger 2, I've also heard good things about that as well. Yeah, any other questions before we wrap this up now that we're done with some feedback? Anyone got thoughts, comments, questions, concerns? By the way, I know I've already said this, but 14-Day Music Producer launched today. I have a link in the description down below. If you want to produce music and you don't want to buy Producer Accelerator because you're like, it's too expensive or whatever. Guess what? 14-Day Music Producer. We just launched it today. It's $97. It's going to be $200 next week. So get it. Don't use the SoCal drums. There are other options. Drum production tutorial coming next. Maybe. I may or may not be partnering with one of my all-time favorite microphone companies ever for my drum studio. Potentially. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm not currently using said microphone company right now. Loud audio. What do I think about Slate digital plugins? The only one I have is Fresh Air. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I'm just not a plugin hoarder. I don't buy a lot of plugins. I just don't. I would rather buy sample libraries. And you should too. I'm using GarageBand right now. Am I planning to get Logic Pro? Yes, it's worth the price. It's 1 bajillion% worth the price. Yes. Yep. Do I have a video on how to properly apply expression to MIDI strings? Yes, actually I do. Just search in my videos on my YouTube channel. Just type in strings and you'll see some examples. I think I have one where it's like using Logic Studio strings, and then I compare it to Native Instruments strings, and I show a lot of stuff. There you go, Andrew Brown. I'm sorry you tested positive for COVID, but that's a good use of your time, I will say. I got COVID last year, and it was the freaking worst. Peter, can I post about, yes. So I'm hoping to try Revoice 4. Synchro Arts and I might be doing some stuff together. Maybe it sounds like we will. I can't really definitively say for sure because we're still talking, but I'm in conversation with Synchro Arts. I'm for sure going to be using Vocaline, but I am kind of thinking about, yeah. Oh, sorry, David, I didn't see this. Can you do this tape stop slowdown effect in Ableton? I think so. I'm sure you can. I just don't know. I'm not an Ableton user, so I can't. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. When are you actually satisfied with your drum sounds and samples to make them feel or sound more live? That's a great question. I mean, like, it just starts with getting good samples to start with, right? So, like, that's obviously easy to say, hard to do. I have been saying this for literally years. The best thing you could possibly buy as a producer is sample libraries. Don't go spend your money on EQs and compressors. Okay, that crap, you already have that stuff in your DAW. Okay, Like Logic, I swear to you, and I'm telling you 1,000,000% fact, I could mix tracks. Like I could mix using nothing but Logic stock plugins, and you guys would not know. And I could just not tell anyone that I'm literally just using stock plugins to mix. No one would freaking know. I would rather spend my money on sample libraries. Buy sample libraries, because like here's the thing. Sound is what makes music, right? Music is sound. So buy sounds. That's what you should be spending your money on. Don't be buying expensive microphones. Don't be buying hardware, and don't be spending money on preamps and spending money on all this junk. Like, what you need to be spending your money on is sample libraries. If I can encourage you in any possible, like, I believe so strongly in this that I am literally considering starting a sample library company, because I believe so much in this that I just want to build sample libraries for people, because music is sound, so just get good sounds. Anyway, I don't know. I might have already bought a domain for the name of that company, but I'm not going to share that. Anyway, how do you produce big drums like Imagine Dragons? Butch Vig. Butch Vig is by far the best drum library you're going to find for stuff like that. Do I use Splice? No, I don't use Splice, but I do use Arcade. I don't use it a ton for drums. For drums, a lot of times I'm just going to be using what was I going to say? I use Arcade. I don't really use Arcade for drums though. I don't find it as usable. Yeah. LTP projects, you use Logic Pro 9. Why don't you have Logic 10? Like, why? I'm just kind of curious. Why wouldn't you be upgrading to Logic 10? I'm just kind of curious. Felipe, as far as go for it, Nathan, about the sample library company, I want to very badly. I'm just not a developer. So if y'all know a developer who builds sample libraries and makes really good sample libraries, I'm up for the talk. I may also be talking with other people that already have a sample library company that I can't talk about that. Anyway, there are all sorts of cool things I want to do. Okay. Let's just put it this way. I love running Producer Accelerator. I love building 14-day music producer and stuff, but yeah, I want to build a music technology company for sure. That'd be so freaking legit. Guys, put Native Instruments out of business. I'm also totally kidding. I love Native Instruments. I would never do that. I would never want to go against Native Instruments, even though the idea that I have is kind of against Native Instruments. Anyways, that's, yeah, whatever. You do have 10, but 9 is so user-friendly. Yeah. I mean, so I started on 9. So yeah, I started on 9, and I tell you what, like when I upgraded 10, which it's probably been since I was like 19 or something like that. It's been like almost 10 years. I mean, Logic 10 has been out for a long time. I was very happy with the switch. So there are lots of plugins in Logic 10 that are not in Logic 9. Alchemy, I believe all the tube EQs. Yeah. Anyway, tell us everything. One-stop shop producer supply collab. That, yeah. Yeah. Look, here's the problem. The problem is I'm an ideas person. I have lots of ideas. The problem with having lots of ideas is that if you try to do all of them, none of them, yeah. John, if I'm interested in furthering that thought, please let me know. Explain. Are you talking about the sample library? Are you a developer? Do you make sample libraries? Should we be talking? Yeah. DMS, what up? Emil, am I saying that right? Songwriter learning music production. Nice. Right on. John, hold on. This guy right here. If you're interested in furthering that thought, please let me know. Respond to me, bro. What are you talking about? Are you referring? Yeah. Sample library development is tricky, okay? Because obviously Contact Player is kind of the standard. I am the project management behind the ideas, people. Let me know. Oh, I got you. There we go. Emil, how do I accelerate my learning music production? You should join my 14-day music producer course. I'm not just saying that because I want you to buy my thing. I'm actually saying that because I literally believe it is the best beginner course you could possibly buy. We just launched it today. It's $97. It's literally $400 less than Producer Accelerator. So I would get that. The link is below this video. Yeah, or buy Producer Accelerator. If you're just getting started, get the 14-day course. Seriously, if you're just getting started, just get the 14-day course. Don't join Producer Accelerator right now. Producer Accelerator is more advanced, and we're going to be making some serious changes to Producer Accelerator in the upcoming months. DMS, quick question. I understand, right? By joining Producer Accelerator, you can get one of your songs reviewed every week. Not every week. So the way we run Feedback Friday is, that's actually what we're doing on this stream right now. This is usually in our private community. We only do it once a month on YouTube, just to basically show you guys what it's like. We do 6 submissions, so 6 people can submit per week. We usually just hit 6, so we're not having like tons and tons of people submitting every single whatever. Anyway, but it's not every week. It's every other week. So basically, you cannot submit every week just because we have like almost 600 people in Producer Accelerator. So we need to be aware that if you submit every week, then you're taking someone else's spot. So basically, right now, if you submit one week, you have to take a week off, and you can submit the following. So it's not every week, but yeah. There you go. Boom. Regarding Peter, all Nathan stuff is well worth the price. I think we're severely undercharging. I'll just put it that way. Like when people complain about Producer Accelerator being too expensive, I kind of shake my head a little bit. College is expensive. Producer Accelerator is freaking cheap. So just saying, like, there are literally people spending $50,000 to go learn audio engineering, and they're learning like 90% of crap that doesn't actually matter. So try that on for size. Should I keep composing in Logic Pro 9? If I were you, I would just switch to Logic Pro 10 and learn Logic Pro 10. It might take you a couple weeks. You'll be happy you did. There's so much more you can do in Logic 10 than you can do in Logic 9. When I made the switch to Logic 10, first of all, it's not as hard as it might seem. I think the interface is actually easier to use than Logic 9. And like I said, there's just way more power, way more plugins. So yeah, don't go to college, people. Like if you're wanting to do music production, don't go to college. Okay. I went to college. I have a degree in music composition. It's pretty much the most useless degree ever. I'm just saying. Chord Chart Pianist is also really great. Yes, I agree. Chord Chart Pianist is great. Thank you. Appreciate that. We've worked really hard on making education affordable. We've worked really hard on making that education also really freaking good. There are a lot of people selling courses. I'm going to get on my soapbox here. I'm going to get on my soapbox for a second, okay? There are lots of people selling courses online. Anyone and everyone thinks they can sell an online course. 95% of them freaking suck at it, okay? Like literally, they suck at it. Yeah. I don't want to be cocky. I'm not just sitting here patting myself on the back. But not only do I know what I'm doing, I know how to teach. Okay, a lot of these people who make these courses, okay, many of them are award-winning producers, right? Award-winning. They've got Grammys. They've got this and that. Many of those people are literally the worst teachers on earth. Just saying. Okay, that's not me trying to bash them, but many of them are just absolutely terrible teachers. Those who can perform at an insanely high level oftentimes have such a lack of understanding of what it was like to be a beginner that they have no ability to talk to a beginner. So this is the difference between people who are, there are a couple of different types of people, right? There are the people who are good at something and who suck at teaching. Okay. Then there are people who are not good at something, but then they're actually really good at teaching. There are people like this. They're maybe not the best at it, but man, can they teach. They can teach, okay? Then there are people that are actually good at it who actually can teach. I don't want to just sit here and be like, that's me, but that's what I strive for, okay? I strive for that. So anyway, that's me on my soapbox. There are other people that sell courses that I would actually really recommend. Forrest Whitehead, freaking good at what he does. He's written #1 hits. He's got Grammy nominations. he's also a really freaking good teacher. Okay, so I'm not just sitting here saying I'm the only one. I'm not the only one. There are plenty of other people out there who do this well. But there are so many out there who do it and suck at doing it. Okay, Alex Rome is a really good teacher. I think Alex Rome is a fan-freaking-tastic good teacher. Like he can make a 10-minute long video about using MIDI and like doing chords with MIDI. Anyway, he's a good teacher. So like people who are doing EDM, yeah, go check out Alex Rome stuff. Like I'm just saying in general, there are other people that can do this. I'm not saying I'm the only one. But yeah, I'm gonna get off my soapbox right now, okay? But I went to college, okay? I got a degree in music composition from a Big Ten university, clout, and yeah, like 95% of everything I freaking learned is useless. Like nothing I am doing today. Okay, that's really strong language. The theory, yes, theory was helpful, but most of the stuff that I learned in college, I'm never gonna use. Never going to use on a day-to-day. I didn't learn any of the things I know about producing in college. I learned how to produce because I was extremely hungry when I was young. I got started when I was 14. And then when I was in college, I actually worked with a producer. I became his servant. Okay. I found a producer who was crushing it in my area. I met someone who was a mutual friend of this person, and I got him to give me his phone number, and I literally called him and said, I will work for free to learn. And that's how I actually got to spend time learning from someone who actually knows what the heck they're doing. Any thoughts on Bobby Owinski's courses? I've not taken his courses. I've read his book, and his book is pretty good. He's got a pretty good book. Yeah. But the problem is, again, they're also focused on mixing and just, like, you want to know what the biggest, okay, again, I'm going to get on my soapbox for the second time on this stream. I'm feeling sassy. Okay. When you hear people saying things like, if you just knew how to mix better, then you'd be a pro. That's a huge red flag. Okay. And I am not saying mixing is not important. Mixing is super important. I've gotten actually a lot more serious about mixing for myself in the last couple of years. And yeah, mixing is super important. Like the difference between a really great mix and a subpar mix, yeah, it's gonna make a big difference. But you know what the difference is between a subpar production and a professional production? Professional production actually doesn't have to be mixed that much. Turns out it already sounds awesome. Subpar productions kind of sound like crap. So it's just again, like when you're looking, I'm not even saying buy my course. What I'm saying is that just have a level head when you're looking, okay? Have a level head when you're looking. And if you're hearing people saying things like, you know, you need to learn how to use plugins more, you need to learn EQ more and compression more and all this stuff, like, again, those things are important. Not saying they're not important, but in the 14-day course that we just launched today, at the end, on day 14, I show you what a static mix sounds like. In other words, a mix that has no plugins on it. Okay, no EQ, no reverb, no delays, no compression, just volume. And guess what? Does it sound as good as the final mix version? Of course not. Of course not. But does it still sound awesome? Absolutely, it sounds awesome. It still sounds awesome. It still sounds great. So, yeah. And exactly what Peter's saying. If you want to be a dedicated mix engineer, yes, learn mixing. But like the problem is there's this big confusion happening. What ends up happening is home studio producers, they're like, I want to make music. So they get the DAW and then they realize, crap, this is really hard, right? So then they go onto YouTube, start looking at tutorials, and then what happens? They get into mixing tutorials, right? Because that's what's popular, mixing tutorials. And they're like, I guess I should just mix. All the while forgetting that, no, like that's like the final thing you do. That's the final thing you do. That's the ending point. Focus on you got to start at the beginning. And most people are not starting at the beginning. Most people are trying to start at the end, putting the cart in front of the horse, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. This is why I have this channel, by the way. Like I was seeing that. I was watching as people are getting sucked into this. And I was like, someone needs to start a channel that just focuses on actually producing music and just on production and not going off on mixing only. So that's been my mission. Anyways, I'm done. I just spent like 20 minutes ranting to you guys. Why are you guys even still here? I don't even know why you're still here. By the way, if you use FBF Stream, you'll get $100 off Producer Accelerator. I probably should have said that sooner. Let me put that in the stream. FBF Stream for $100 off Producer Accelerator. Boom. Cool. Well, I'm going to end the stream because, Billy, nothing better to do. I'm going to end the stream because, I've got a little 1-year-old. Oh, sorry. Logic Pro user makes a song on GarageBand. I already did that. And that video has 1 million views, which is crazy. I did that. I did a pro producer uses GarageBand. I did that, and it broke 1 million views, which is ridiculous. Peter, because your rants are the best. Thank you. Cool. Well, I've got a little beautiful 1-year-old daughter upstairs, almost 3-year-old boy, and I'm gonna go up there and hang out with them. Oh, Jose, your course for beginners only. 14-day music producer could take a beginner to an intermediate level. Okay. If you're already kind of an intermediate level, 14-day music producer is still probably the best starting point because it's going to cover so many things that are going to help you. If you want to get straight into the full-blown thing, Producer Accelerator is more advanced for sure. So 14-day music producer, that course is really for beginners and more like kind of like lower intermediate. Okay. And then Producer Accelerator is the advanced course. So just take it, assess where you're at. If you're already at an intermediate level, 14-day music producer is still gonna be good. By the way, we have a handful of producers who have already gotten it, who have said that it's super, super valuable and super helpful. Oh, nice. Super Prame. That's legit. Love that. Cool. Well, I'm gonna end the stream. We're gonna get rock and rolling here. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend and happy Easter and Good Friday. We'll see you.